I'm here, Maulik Sailor, founder and CEO of Notchup.com. We are building an AI co-pilot for engineering managers to automate their people ops. And today I've got two very interesting guests for us to talk about engineering management in general, from two very different perspectives. Both of these guests brings wealth of experience from their individual background as well as for the role that they had up. Um, and today we're going to mainly talk about how, as an engineering leader, what are the challenges that they face in their day-to-day activities, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. How do they really go about uh, managing what does it mean by engineering management? What elements are there? What are the challenges do you see? And what are the tools out there in the market currently at the moment which makes their job easy? So without further delays, let me first introduce Robert. Robert, I happened to meet him very briefly actually in SF. I'm not sure if you remember me or not, but we spoke for a brief moment, as one of the event. I liked what you spoke back then, and I was like, okay, I want to get you somehow in one of these podcasts that I do, and I'm really glad that you could make it today. To our audience, Robert is currently VP of Engineering at SugarCRM. I will let Robert to introduce himself in a minute. And then we have a second guest, Ajit Beharra. He's also an engineering manager. He's currently heading up a larger team at Meta, but his experience mainly is on enterprise side. But today, both of them, uh, almost in a similar role, but from a very different perspective, is going to talk about the challenges that they face. So why don't we start with you, Robert? Robert, it will be great if you can introduce yourself and talk about your day-to-day activities as an engineering manager. Sorry, as a
Sure,
VP of engineering.
sure.
I actually, what, that will be great. Because I understand there are different hierarchies between engineering managers and VP of engineering, but depending on the company side, that definition can blur. So it would be great to also understand the differences in the two roles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll start from the VP of engineering role. I'm Robert Gonzalez. I've been um, with SugarCRM for a little over, actually about 13 and a half years now. Started off as an engineer, as a senior platform engineer within SugarCRM, and worked up through leadership into management, now into the executive ranks. I've been in tech for a little over 20 years. I've enjoyed my entire journey to where I am today. And one thing I will say right now is that engineering leadership today is at an inflection point. We're in one of those periods of time where we're experiencing change like we haven't experienced in a very long time, and it's creating a lot of excitement and a lot of energy. For some people, some anxiety, and it's an exciting time to be in, and for some, it's a scary time to be in. And I'm having a really good time in the midst of both of those spaces.
That's great. That's great, Robert. Ajit, would be great if you can introduce yourself and your background. And again, would be great for us to understand your day-to-day activities. You as an engineering manager, what does it entail? And to be honest, you work for a large enterprise, right?
Right.
So from that perspective, there might be some blending of the definition and the roles of responsibility from one level to another. So would be great, to hear from you about your role, your background, and at different companies, do they call it same or do they call it different?
Yeah, maybe I can start with my background. So I have a very engineering centric background. I have been working in this large tech companies for about 15 years. And I moved to people management. I've been leading engineering teams for quite few years now. My experience spans from learning like, say, in this case, because today we're discussing about AI, specifically Gen AI, how it can like improve engineering team operations, how can it enable them further. So I have a good understanding of language models. And then as part of I'm also actually doing my MBA at Berkeley has at the moment, just wrapping up. And as part of that, I have been doing some independent studies on how AI can be leveraged for decision making, especially in the people side. So all the perspective I bring to this discussion is from those. Uh, I'm not representing my current company Meta in this discussion.
Okay,
But as the
perfect.
discussion goes, I can share more of my experience.
Yeah, that will be great, Ajit, right? So one thing you touch upon, Ajit, is about people management. But generally, uh, across the board as an engineering leadership, when we talk about, right? And again, Robert, feel free to correct me, if you think that, I'm not heading in the right direction, right? But generally, in engineering leadership, you have four aspects to look after. One is your technology, like the piece of technology that you are responsible to deliver, as per your business priorities and so on. Second is your people side, that okay, you need a bunch of people to deliver that piece of technology or to work and then create that technology and make it available for the business, right? So that's second, the people side. Then you have the process, that okay, you have the people, but you need to take them through a particular process to create that output that you need to create. Generally, when you talk about process, we talk about DevOps practices and agile delivery and all of that. But is there something else that we should be talking about, right? And then the fourth element is financial management. That it's going to cost you like a few things, like whatever the budgets are, to run the team that you are responsible for. Plus, any process that you implement, there might be some tooling involved in that process, right? So there are costs involved in that, right? And with this AI coming in the mix now, that okay, where do you deploy the AI tools? Where do you deploy the human, in that? So I think, in my opinion, these are like the remit of engineering leadership for management. Uh, would you agree? Am I missing anything here?
And I would agree with that. I mean, when you look at generally when you look at the areas that we impact the business, it's going to be in those four general areas, right? In the world of like lean manufacturing or practical problem solving, you have those broken down into the four M's: man, machine, method, material. You just
Mhm.
kind of covered all of that. Um, and as engineering leaders, we have to be cognizant of all of that, right? Our technology needs to be it needs to be the right solution for the customers that are leaning on us. It needs to be built right so that way it maintains proper levels of security and quality. It needs to be built in a way that is priced right for our customers to consume it, and it needs to be built in an efficient manner by the people that are building it in order for it to be saleable. Like it needs to be an efficiently developed tool that the company can back with its own investment. So I think those are four key areas of the role of any leader to be aware of what's going on there. Ajit?
Okay. Ajit,
Yeah,
would you want to add something?
yeah, I think so. That's why I feel like what you guys said in those four areas, I think in all of those areas, Gen AI can be leveraged to make it more. For example, so if you want to reduce cost for consumers, now you are spending for people also on tooling on many the cost kind of add up, and then when you leverage Gen AI the right way, then the talent you retain or the productivity gain you get, that will affect the costs as well. So yeah, we can kind of discuss more along those lines as
Okay,
we go.
great, wonderful. So, so my background has been kind of a product. So I started into engineering, ended up becoming a product manager, and I've been in a product for a long time. And then I also performed like engineering leader role, kind of a CPO, CTO kind of hybrid role for a startup. So I was responsible for product as well as for technology and engineering practices. Um, but generally, when you talk into product, then in the product, you talk like three flavors of a product manager. A product manager who is more user focused, a product manager who is more technology focused, technical product manager, or a product manager who is more market or commercial product, and you call it like commercial product manager or product marketing manager, right? So kind of that's where you have like a three different flavors within that. Do you think in the engineering management, you also have this kind of flavors uh, of an engineering leader? Somebody who's focusing more on people side, somebody who's focusing more on, technology side, somebody who's focusing more on the financial and strategic side. Have you seen something like that in the market?
So I haven't seen that the way that I've seen it in PM.
Hmm.
I know exactly what you're talking about in the world of product management, right? You have product managers who are heavily tech slanted. You have product managers that are very product or user centric, and then you have those that are geared towards sort of the financial side of things. On the engineering side, I've actually seen that, but I've seen it in a different way. So I've seen like tech forward engineering leaders and user or product forward engineering leaders that tend to sit at the same level, right? As you start to get up into like director level and VP level, you start to have people that lay in place in those particular areas. One easy way to look at that is, platform or back end versus front end, where your back end is generally not as concerned with the users and what the users have in their hands as much as what happens for the users with the products that they're using. And the front end is much more user centric. The higher up in the organization you go, and within technology, anyways, like at the CTO level, they're interested in technology, they're interested in users, and they're very interested in the financial implications of those choices to the business. And the financial implications cover the breadth of the business. It's the cost of people, the cost of tools, it's the cost of getting your product to market, it's the cost of transition and digital transformation. Like there's a lot of costs that you need to take into account, but generally I believe that the cost part of it sits at a higher level in engineering, at least in my experience, whereas the focus on product and the focus on users and the focus on technology has a tendency to be richer at a little bit of a lower level.
Um, I've got a few bunch of questions actually over there, right? I'm going to do a little bit side talk from our core topic, right? O- Oftentimes, in many companies, you have product reporting under CTO or a VP of engineering, right? And in some organizations, you could have like a CPO and a head of engineering reporting under the CPO, right? Whereas some organization will keep it completely separate. You will have a CPO running the whole product management, and then you will have a CTO running the whole technology management, right? Have you seen this? Do you think there's a benefit of doing one way or the another way? Or there could be really a problem in doing one particular setup. What does your experience say?
Ajit, do you want that one first? I have
Uh,
an answer for this, but I want to
yeah,
give it
you
to
you
Ajit
go ahead.
first.
I think I can maybe cover for the first question based on my experience, but I think this is something maybe Robert you can check on.
Okay, I'll step into it. So I've actually worked in organizations where um, engineering and PM were under the same umbrella, and I've worked in organizations where PM and engineering were separate. And I think there's positives and areas for improvement in both of those structures. One area that I think is a strong positive when you have PM and engineering under the same umbrella. In our case, it was all under the CTO umbrella. Um, One of the areas I think that showed the most benefit was there was a lot of synergy in the teams because they were basically embedded into the same organization. We had the same head who was sharing with us the same strategy. We were all aligned on that strategy. We were all working together and we were all rowing the boat in the same direction without any confusion and any lapse in that conversation. Um, However, when you have strong leaders like a CTO and a CPO that have their own organizations, and those leaders are pushing and encouraging collaboration, you get the same effect. It's not as rapid because you're not in everything together, but you do get the same effect. And the organizational structure that I'm in right now, we have a CTO, we have a CPO, and both of those organizations are um, very well aligned and working towards the same initiatives in really strong collaboration in our own separate verticals. Ajit, go ahead if you have something else to add to that.
No, and the first question that Maulik asked about like in the engineering management, is there leanings of engineering managers? Somebody is more technology inclined,
Yeah.
somebody is more people inclined. In the tech companies, I see that there is like depending on people's inclination, we'll find engineering managers who kind of have more hands-on approach to learn what the team is exactly working on, and also how they can enable the team even on the technology standpoint. But there are other teams where the engineering managers focus more on the people part, leaving the technical work to tech leads or the engineers in the team. But as Robert mentioned, as you go higher up in the like go to directors and VPs, this kind of split is not there much. Even if it's a very highly technical area, so they might have strong engineering or technical background, but the hands-on work definitely gets a lot reduced.
Cool, wonderful. I want to drag the conversation back to our core topic, right? Apologies for taking this sidestep. But generally, sometimes on our audience, we have people who are, growing up their career, and they may want this clarity that, okay, how can they map their background into their future goals, right? Hence, I thought this sidestep will be interesting. Um, Coming back to the core of our topic, right, about engineering leadership. Um, you know, there's a lot of AI buzz happening, across the board. Any part of the business, you can imagine any workflow or any function you have, any task that you need to be doing within the organization. There is an AI tool for that, or there is an AI agent for that. There is an AI workflow for that, right? Or if there's nothing, then you still have AI automation platform like an A10, with which you can basically execute a workflow, right? Um, Now going back to our original, like, four segment, like, technology, people, process, and strategic and finance, where do you see the most impact of all this AI, the revolution that we are currently living into, um, why don't we start with you, Ajit?
I think so. Starting with the technology. So if you think about, especially in the software development or software infrastructure, so previously the way people used to write software is like encoding some rules, routines, and concrete instructions, and then storing that as like software. But with AI, that paradigm is totally changing. So, like some people even dub it as like software 2.0, where you are not the software itself, the network or the language model itself is the software. And the what we are storing is the weights. And so this is no longer like you don't have to explicitly say this, you need to do this, because now you can use natural languages to do it, or you can encode the patterns into these models to do this. I think that's where the biggest change is going to happen first, will happen first, because a lot of this software 1.0 is going to move to software 2.0. But I think that will change how engineers work in the team. But on the team scale, like engineering team scale, how we can like adopt uh, generative AI into engineering, say, processes, hiring, performance management. Those areas are also gonna change significantly in coming years.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because that's what we are hoping to do with Notchup. But anyway, Robert, how about you? Where do you see the most impact, between these four segments that we identified?
So I tend to look at this at a little bit of a higher level. I agree with Ajit that you're going to see tremendous impact in the software engineering space in particular. You're going to see tremendous impact in the core of the work that we do, which is producing code, producing product, right? But at a higher level, I tend to think that the biggest impact is going to be on process, and it's going to be all the things that Ajit just said: hiring, performance management, strategy, even to the lower levels like sprint management and code review and architecture, and meetings. Like you're seeing this in meetings a lot, right? Where you can hop into a meeting, not have any additional software anywhere on your computer. In 30 minutes, your meeting ends. In 31 minutes after you started that meeting, you have a full recap with summarization and transcript of your meeting that can then feed into your other AI systems that build your context, that feed the model, that tell your systems this is what you needed to know from that, right? If you look at the way that we've done business up to this point, and you look at the way we're doing business now, AI is having, in my opinion, the biggest impact in all of the processes that we follow. Whether it's, your financial planning or your budgeting or your team planning or, as Ajit said, your hiring or your performance management, all of those areas of the business are being positively impacted by AI. It's making things faster, it's making things clearer, it's surfacing the right data at the right time when you need it, and it's putting you in a position to have insights where before you needed to go find those insights out of a pool of data. The AI tooling that we're using now is doing that part for you, so your job becomes a lot easier and a lot faster.
Okay. Now, I'm quite familiar with the engineering side, right? You have your GitHub Copilot, you have your cursor, you have your, the vibe coding, the lovable and the replit and all those stuff, right? Um, I heard a saying that, there's no future for a front-end developer. Would you agree?
I would not know. I'm a huge proponent of keeping the human in the human resource. And the reason for that is there's one element I believe that humans have that computers haven't mastered yet, and I don't know that they're going to, and that's the element of emotion. The element that you have to be able to connect with your customers, connect with your market, connect with your coworkers. Like you can put 50 AI agents together and tell them to go build a product, they're absolutely going to go knock it out of the park. If you can go tell them to build a product that's going to make their users feel good about themselves, it's very hard for them to do that because they don't understand the nature of feeling, right? There's pieces of the process that people still need to be a part of. I believe that AI is very good at doing a lot of the heavy lifting that we've been doing over years as engineers. But at the end of the day, I think we are still the final gatekeepers of what makes its way into the hands of the customer. Whether you're looking at a coding agent or a code review tool or a diagramming agent or whatever AI tool you're looking at, if you don't put human eyes on the output of it, you're taking a big risk, in my opinion. I think that the jobs we do as engineers are going to change. Like Ajit was saying, I don't need people to go and write code anymore as much, but I still need people to make sure that the code that's being written, wherever it's being written from, passes muster. It needs to be secure. It needs to be high quality. It needs to be scalable. It needs to be the right application of logic. And while AI can do a lot of that work, the gatekeeper there is the person, in my opinion.
Okay. Ajit?
I think I agree with Robert on this. I think AI is not going to fully replace engineers, but it's definitely changed the way they work significantly. For example, like if you go back like 30 to 40 years or even further back, we used to write like very low level languages. Slowly that has moved up. We are writing. So today the most used language for AI is like Python.
Mm,
It's a long journey from like the low level language to here today. But with
mm,
AI, I think that will shift towards the natural languages. So what that means is the engineers, so the somebody with the domain knowledge, they would still be in charge to make sure that the intent is right, like to build a product, what we are building, is it connecting to the customers? They need to make sure. So that also means that they are no longer the traditional engineers anymore. So every engineering work will have a little bit of product management thinking into it.
mm,
So the I think the it's kind of the abstraction level is slowly going up. So today maybe still they're gonna do a lot of validation and testing after the software is integrated, being generated from AI. But even that will slowly move move from manual work to AI. So a lot of validation testing will be done by AI. But the whole system will still be set up by engineers. And
mm.
the whole intent and the goal what we are building, that still needs to be set up by humans. So I think that's the direction I think it's going toward.
Okay, wonderful. Um, I want to touch on the other side, apart from technical, right? So strategic and financial side, right? Now, strategy and finance, right? It's not really a set of rules, right? It's a lot of guesswork. It's a lot of experience, gut feeling, data that you are analyzing, but you're analyzing, uh, not in a way that everybody else will be analyzing, right? And companies with the same sets of data with competing product will still have a very different strategic direction that they may pursue, right? Do you think there's a role for AI to play there?
Yes, I think there's a role for AI to play in everything we do. I mean, for any of us that have used AI in any capacity, we can see the power that it brings to the table in the things that we do, right? And something you just said right now is actually critical to this conversation is if I have a data set and you have a data set and it's the same set and you and I are even in the same product space, you and I are likely going to grab different insights from that data, the same way that AI works, right? You have a model, you have another model, you send the same data to it, you're going to get different results. Hell, you might send the same set of data to the same model twice and get different results from it. It is our job to use all the tools at our disposal to be able to do the jobs we need to do effectively and efficiently. And I think AI plays very well in that space of strategic initiatives, building out your forward strategy, your product strategy, your tech strategy, and every other strategy that you might have. I think AI has a home there.
Okay. Have you seen a tool currently in the market which is working at that level?
So I haven't dug deep into like strategy specific tools, but I've played around with what the various LLMs could do with things that I want to do. Like you can feed a lot of data into these things and
Mm.
ask for a lot of different outcomes. I know like the Anthropic series of LLMs are very good. OpenAI's is very good. Um, I've played around with Gemini and what Google has brought forward with their models in the past. I have my favorites, but I haven't looked at a specific tool for this yet. No.
Yeah. Ajit?
Yeah, I think so now these language models they come with that deep thinking mode, which can be really used for coming up with strategy and if you're incorporating a lot of data to make decisions. So just taking a step back, like to your original question, like what kind of role AI is gonna play in strategy. So I think humans have uh, a drawback in our thinking because if you think about like all the noise there in the data, like when the volume of data is really high, when the data is conflicting, humans are not really good at decision making. Similarly, there is a lot of also bias. Not that AI doesn't have bias, but AI can be easily rectified. But humans, the system, the way it is built, is gonna like accumulate bias and noise over time. So it's not easy to remove like in AI systems you can do if you want to, if you intend to take action. So when you have a lot of data and when the data is conflicting or it can actually make overwhelming for humans to make decisions, I think AI plays a role. So when you're going back and making strategy decisions and you start with data, so the fast scan that needs to happen can happen through AI, but later on humans should be at the level when they take that deliberate decision making based on that
Okay.
extracted data.
So overall, what we are saying here is that current state of AI is, I think we all agree that it's super powerful, it's super useful. There's a lot of, the LLMs in particular, I have got a lot of advanced capabilities right now. But the problem is a lot of, I mean, they may come back with, different flavors of output, based on what you feed to them. And so there needs to be that human judgment and the human control required both on the technology side as well as on strategic side and so on to make that decision. So eventually the decision making is still with the humans, but then the actual like processing of the underlying data or background information you can basically do it through LLMs or any other AI models.
So in the first place, like we can reduce that variability in answers of LLMs by setting
Mm,
guardrails or setting rubrics. So that
mm,
that would give us more filtered or more refined data, and it won't actually overwhelm with all the like raw data you have. And looking at that data, I think it's easier to take decisions for humans than starting with
mm.
the initial set. I mean, that's all I
Okay,
think.
cool. Coming back to the other pillar, right? The people and process, right? Now, People is a difficult one, right? I mean, there's a process side. I have an interesting thought on the people side. I'll reserve that towards the end. But let's just talk of the process, right? Now, process you can again split into in two sides. Your technical process where you are running, let's say your CI/CD process, to produce the output, right? But then you also have other admin and compliance and necessary avils that you have to do. For example, reviews. I mean, I wouldn't say necessary avil, but it's something that not everybody enjoys, right? Um, your hiding and firing, upskilling, right? All those things, right? Do you enjoy this, first of all? If not, are you deploying anything AI to take care of all this? You know, the I don't want to use the phrase necessary evils, right? But the things that you don't enjoy, particularly on the process side, people and process side. Are you deploying anything at the moment, or are you aware of anything in the market?
So I can speak to that a little bit.
Mm,
There are elements of management that are people oriented that I think are very enjoyable for
mm,
people who are for managers that are people first. Let me
mm,
say that. I personally am a people first manager, so things like coaching, mentoring, career pathing, guiding, correcting, those things, I actually take a great deal of enjoyment in that. So I have not looked to offload any of that to AI tools. What I have looked to AI tools for, though, are patterns in staff that might need to raise certain things to me so I can see them, right?
mm,
So there's a lot of software on the market today. Particularly like if you look at like productivity tools, that's a great one to start with. You look at a thing like DX or linear, I think it's linear B or jellyfish in those
mm,
spaces that look at data for your teams, that for your people, and they surface patterns that you can look at. Those patterns can range from anything like excessive throughput to diminished throughput to higher defect counts to slower turnaround times on PRs, right? Those all tell a story. That data tells a story. What I like AI to do for me is not just give me the data, but to give me the story along with the insights so I have actions that I can take. From there, though, I like being able to take those actions myself. I like having the conversation. I like hearing the other side of the story because a lot of times data can give you a portion of the story, but in order to get the full story, you got to actually talk to a person. You got to ask them, hey, why is your output going down over the last 2 weeks? I have people that in my organization, they've had family trauma, they've had political turmoil in the part of the world that they're in, and they're, either without power for parts of the day or they have to pack up their family and leave on a moment's notice. Those kind of things impact a person's ability to do the job that you're asking them to do. So you can't just look at a number and say, you know what, that's a red flag. That's an indicator, and we need to be able to use those indicators in the work that we do. For the people side of that, for me, I don't want to use tools for the people parts. I do want to use tools to get me closer to that, but when it comes to the actual handling of people, whether it's career pathing, correction, promotion, rewarding, I actually like doing that part myself.
yeah. No, it's a good point. One thing I remembered when you mentioned that, sometimes, I'm familiar with all these tools like Jelly Beans and All Stacks and the others, which gives you all this data that, okay, raises red flag, okay, there's something not, or a particular team member is not productive enough and all. Oftentimes, some teams, they are underperforming, and you will just see an issue that, okay, they are a little bit slower than the rest of the team. Some of their velocity doesn't make sense. There's not really any obvious problem. Probably most people are fine. But when you dig deeper, and the limitations of those tools is that they only look into your engineering, like, stack. But when you connect the people stack, right, then you can see, okay, you know what, a particular team, they're underperforming purely because they just simply have a conflicting behavioral style or a working style, right? Which is not reflected in their, the engineering stuff that they do, right? Sometimes, and you can rectify that by literally just like, moving people from one project to another, you know. But generally, people are not self-aware that, okay, this is the way I'm working and this is the way the other person is working. You talk to each other, maybe maybe your personality conflict with each other. You understand, sometimes you put on with it and so on. But once you connect the people side, that's when you start seeing those hidden data or the hidden insights that are generally not available in a lot of engineering tooling, in my opinion. So that's something that we discovered in some of the stuff that we have been doing. That oftentimes is not like, okay, people are underperforming. It's not because they are underperformer. It's just they are put into a wrong in a wrong team actually. Uh, Sometimes when you talk about coaching and mentoring and upskilling them, sometimes you give them the upskilling to your team. uh, they will do it. You ask them, they'll do it. Okay, fine. Part of my PDP, I'll get it done. Blah blah blah. But they're not really motivated to do that because their long-term career goal may not be aligned with that, right? But you may have somebody else in a different team whose long-term goals may actually align with your your strategic priorities and so on. So it might be better to move that person into your team and assign that learning to that person, right? So these are some of the insights that we discovered, in some of the pilots that we did. That is beyond the obvious, things that you cannot really see. And for us, why this is exciting is because we were trying to build all of these things, the data points and everything internally, and trying to, create models for us to figure all everything out. And it was, like usual, taking us to do forever, right? And then last year we said, okay, instead of us trying to build everything, why don't we connect LLMs to this one, generative AI, right? So we connected all the data sources into LLM, and suddenly, like, the model works amazingly well, right? So, I mean, and it can do a lot more correlations than even what we were thinking about, right? So for me, just that shift from our internal models to, some of like, OpenAI in particular and Llama, um, literally changed the way our platform works. So I'm like really, really positive about that. Um, Now, when dealing with people, there's something, we touched upon earlier. Like AI is generally probabilistic system. It's not a deterministic system, right? And when you're dealing with people, there are a lot of regulations and compliance, right? You can't just hire and fire, right? You can't, there might be, you're making your decision based on, information which seems true but may not be true, you know, um, or maybe the AI is not really able to handle. I think Robert, you touched upon earlier. AI is not able to handle the human side of it as well, as a team leader should be able to do, right? What's your general advice? So if you were using some tools right now, I'm not sure what tools you are currently using, but if you are, what are your like advice or a few tips or guidance you can give to other similar leaders like yourself?
So the bits of advice I would give are maintain the level of curiosity you had as you rose through the ranks to leadership, right? Engineers are curious people. Engineers are driven people. Maintain that because as technology evolves, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for us to do some really cool experimentation and trials with some things that are coming out that haven't even been invented yet, right? Every day, some new form of technology is being invented that we get to try. Stay curious, keep trying them. At the same time, keep people at the center of what it is you're doing. Because I still believe, and I will hold on to this, that people are a very important part of the process and the businesses that we're building. While I do believe that AI can make great strides in doing a lot of work that has historically been done by people through just general labor, there are still elements of the people factor that we will never be able to get rid of. And so my advice is keep people at the center of what you're doing and trust that people can grok what they need to be able to make really good decisions with the technologies that we're using, and that if you can encourage alignment with your strategies, you can unleash a level of productivity and a level of curiosity that we have not seen before. So strive for alignment, stay curious, keep people in the loop.
Ajit?
Did you guys see the recent MIT study came up about? adoption of LLMs in this engineering teams, how it's like 90% of those trials have been ended in failure. So I think
Yeah.
maybe this question kind of relates to that. I think I have not actually gone through the reasoning because it's just the numbers I have looked at. But I think it's up to the leaders to find the fit and trade-offs, like where LLMs or generative AI creates advantage versus where like traditional means continues. For example, compliance or very safety critical things. You are not gonna leave it to AI at this moment. You can use it to some extent, but not leave it to AI, for example. Uh, yeah,
Okay,
I think
sorry.
that's a big question. So when creating strategy for the team, I think the trade-offs and the fit, those are the two aspects you need to look at really well.
Okay, cool. Wonderful. Now I'm just conscious of time, right? And I did say that I have a question that I'm going to reserve towards the end, right? And I'm gonna, bring it over here, right? Okay, be prepared for that, right? I've not asked this question to any of the guests yet, and it's fairly new things that we have been evaluating recently. Okay, how do you guys think about, you know, like as part of your engineering teams, like the people side, how do you think about employing digital labor to work alongside the actual humans, right? Right, that's one side as an employer, right, or as a team person in charge of running a team, right? But also as an engineer yourself, do you think you would like to clone yourself as an AI clone, which can do most of the mundane tasks for you, so that you as an individual can focus on high level, high value productive activities? What do you guys think?
Maybe I can go first.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ajit.
So I think the question like, can an AI agent be one of the engineers in your team? I think that's the starting
Hmm.
point. Whether you want to clone or not, that's slightly different. But can we have an AI agent and engineer in the team? I think it's definitely going to be beneficial for not just it's for the team and for the organization. For example, think about like the team is loaded with a lot of on-call tasks today. A lot of these teams who interface with uh, systems that needs to be up all the time. You can have this kind of agent as one of the engineers who does all this triaging on-call first work. Second, so I have seen a lot of teams. There is what happens is like suppose they have PRs, they're submitting commits, and they don't have people actually doing reviews in time, and that kind of takes a lot of productivity. But there also you can have this person employed doing a first level scan, giving some scores for somebody else to come and do a final review, which will be much faster than if you wait for other people. So I'm saying that there are some gaps or opportunities for this application of AI agents in the teams.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you my opinion. I've had an opinion for a while now that AI is your additional team member. They're another part of your team or a seat in the team, right? And my more recent opinion has grown into I could see engineers turning into orchestrators of agents. And what I mean by that is I've used AI so far in most areas of SDLC, all the way from the idea phase that PM employs through the support phase of like defect remediation. I could absolutely see a world in which an engineer's job is to orchestrate the full development of something from idea phase through the supporting of that as a singular person that manages a group or orchestrates a group of AI agents. I don't know that we're there yet. I think right now I could absolutely see a like an architecting agent. I can see a code assist agent. I can see a code remediation agent, a code review agent, a documentation agent being on the team where it offloads all of the busy work and the mundane work that engineers have done in the past. Because I'll ask engineers watching this right now, how much do you enjoy writing unit tests? How much do you enjoy writing your documentation and covering your API? How much do you enjoy creating architecture diagrams? Like, I don't think that's the most enjoyable part of what we do. I'm
Mm.
sure some of us enjoy it, but most of us enjoy solving those really hard problems using our minds and throwing some code at it or some other pieces at it at some point in the process, right? The problem solving part of it is where we excel. The additional layers of effort that we put into it, those are the parts that most of us don't want to do regularly. And that's where agents come in and help unload a lot of that off our plate so we can focus on the problem solving pieces. So, to your first question, employing an agent as a digital teammate, I can see that. I 100% can see that. As it relates to cloning myself, and I'm going to take you at your word there, that term. I no, I don't see myself as wanting to clone me because I think I can barely put up with myself as it is. But the truth is, I think there's tools out there that handle the busy work for us and unleash us to do the work that we want to do.
Yeah, cool. So, the cloning part, you have tools which can, like, the PR and code reviews and, unit testing. I think that I've seen some AI tools demo, which can do it for you. But, the reason why I was getting intrigued about cloning is because, see, we as humans, all of us have personal experiences, right? Which is why we all are different, right? And secondly, we all have a piece of knowledge that we know nobody else know in the world,
Mhm.
right? So if I were to clone my agent, then my agent is going to be different than what's out there. It's going to be always be like, whatever the public or internet knowledge is. On top of that, there will be a small delta, which is what will make my clone a little bit unique. And so it's for everybody, right? So then, depending on the task at hand, the task might be better performed by my clone than generic AI agent. You know, that was my thinking that, okay, if I were to replicate myself as a clone, why would I want to do it? Because I think I have a piece of knowledge which is not there on the internet, and so is everybody else, right? So every one of us are actually, a huge knowledge, repository, which is not online right now,
Right.
right? It's
So
not in any online database.
The
what
question.
you're saying is that we become the context engine, right? That's what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead, Ajit.
basically.
So Maulik, like the digital twin of you that you were kind of envisioning,
Yeah.
will it have the autonomy to take action on your behalf?
I don't know, but I would say not 100%, not 100%. But things like that, like like look, I'm find myself, class for times, right? That okay, I need to attend two meetings, two team members need my attention. Uh, I can't do that, right? So it's okay, fine, okay, clone, you go there, get the notes, give me the insight, right? If it's about this, make sure you get this as an outcome. I can just pre-program that, right? And I can attend the other one, right? Whatever, right? I mean, that's just a thought.
So it's more like passive work that they can
Yeah,
represent you.
passive work, but also like for example, so if I take off my background, my career, I've been involved in a lot of early stage 0 to 1 startups, many times, right? And I have seen that a lot of times, like they are all different. I worked in different segments, but there is a piece of work which is kind of same in all these startup, regardless of the domain or whatever. And I'm like, why do I have to keep doing this over and over every time, there's a new startup I'm doing, right? Instead, I can just have my clone do that for me. You know, that's an example, right? So, and why my clone? Because my clone will do the way I want to do it, not the way, ChatGPT will tell it to do. You see the difference, right? Uh, and as a human, we are all a little bit flawed, right? We are all flawed. So my agent will also be a little bit flawed. It won't be perfect. And that is what will make it more like me. It's my extension. You're still working with me, but it's my extension.
I think there will be a Black Mirror episode and how things go wrong from here.
I was thinking the same thing, Ajit. That's come straight out of Black Mirror, man.
Yeah.
But I
But
definitely
you know that
see like how it can be useful. I see some people actually send their digital selves to Zoom meetings, but I've not
yeah
seen like it taking real action like on behalf of them rather than just taking notes and listening.
yeah
Yeah, those kind of. But
yeah. I
it
mean
capture the whole like your full personality, and it has to you have to give it full memory of everything you have done in the past, so it can then
yeah. So
extrapolate.
my thought is to flip around the whole. So something that I'm experimenting right now, right, is to flip the whole LLM concept. So right now LLM is basically you have all these models trained up by Anthropic and ChatGPT and Google and everybody else. They have the base model working. We go in at the user and then we basically give our prompt, and the prompt gives the response based on the training that has happened. I'm looking to flip it around the other way, where the database or the underlying knowledge or information is from me, is mine, something that I am creating and I am basically uploading, right? It may not be online, it may be my historic project that I have done, maybe I have to just recreate some of the artifact. Um, I give the prompt, I basically train it to give the response. Okay, if somebody asks my clone about this particular thing, make sure you reply in this way, right? So that the internet, when they talk to me, you know, my clone will give the response that I would give as a human.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like what you're saying, it can be directly applied to the previous discussion we had. So, for example, you have all the history for your team
Mm,
provided to the agent, like it's stored.
mm,
So then,
mm,
when you start a new project, it can say, "Hey, based on your past history, you have been making this kind of mistakes. Why don't you start with
mm.
having redundancies or some kind of contingency plans for this kind of situations?"
Yeah,
And same for the like individuals like us, it can give us that kind of.
yeah. So I had this thought recently. Me and Sachin, we also spoke about that. That if we were to have a clone, what would we want our clone to do,
Yeah.
basically? Um, and yes, I would like it to do everything, and for me to relax on a beach, but that's not possible. So, um, and then I will get really bored, right? So, uh, like, what can we have this clone to do? And at this moment, we don't have all the answers, but it's something that, I've been recently experimenting that, okay, if I were to do this, how would I do it?
So OpenAI, I think some of these companies also are building, they want to store all the information you provide, all the interaction you had, so that they can customize, personalize the answer for you.
Yeah, but that's exactly is the point. Because
Yeah,
if I tell OpenAI about my,
yeah,
like, whatever knowledge I have,
yeah,
it's going to become a public knowledge.
yes,
And I don't want my unique
true.
experiences to be a public knowledge.
Yeah,
Because that's what makes us unique, right?
yeah.
Just imagine, right? The reason you are in a role, the job or role you are currently doing is because you as a person, whenever you interviewed for that role, the employer made a decision that your background, your experience, your knowledge is very relevant to the project that they are doing, right? Yes, there might be some other candidates or somebody else as well, but they selected you because
Yeah.
you're like a unique take kind of match with what they were looking for.
This is a good
Hey,
startup
Malik.
idea. You can
Yeah,
have like some enclave where you can store the
yeah,
personal memory or like all the data, and then you have
cool.
uh,
Robert, I believe you want to go.
I need to drop because I have another engagement I need to get to right now.
Cool. No worries, no worries. Robert, lovely
thanks.
to have you. But I need to catch up with you properly separately, so I'll drop you a message.
Very good.
But Robert, I'll let you go. Thanks a lot for joining this live. I think it was a very interesting topic. We are still running more than an hour, so it just shows how interesting the conversation is going.
Indeed, it was a good conversation. Thanks, Ajit. It was very nice meeting you. Sashim, take care. Bye, Malik.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Robert. Thank you. Yes, Ajit. Right, you were saying something.
Yeah, I was saying this could be a good startup idea because what you are saying is true that you don't have to provide all this information to any company. Not even like if you build a company, nobody would like to provide this information. But if it can be separated, it's stored so that the
Mm,
company, whoever is providing the service, they don't have access, and
mm.
the people can use it as this as their digital twin.
Yeah, correct. right? So, anyways, it's a fairly new concept we've been experimenting. So, hopefully we'll have something available soon. That's what I can say. Yeah, cool. Anyways, Ajit, I think just mindful of the time here as well. Thanks a lot for joining today. It was really wonderful for you to have you on our podcast. Great insight. All the very best with your MBA that you are doing at Berkeley. I'll be in SF actually fairly soon, possibly next month. So hopefully, it would be great to see you in person actually.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can chat up outside of this.
Cool. All
Thanks,
right.
thanks,
Cool.
Maulik.
All
Thanks,
right.
Sachin.
Uh, Thanks a lot, Ajit. That's it, folks, for today. We'll call it a day for today. And thanks a lot for everybody who joined in to on this podcast. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye.